What's up, guys? Frank here with Noah of Bad Omens, who put out a phenomenal album, The Death of Peace of Mind, earlier this year, and it is without a doubt one of my favorite records I've heard in the last few. Noah, thanks for talking with me. As I mentioned, The Death of Peace of Mind is such a standout record for me personally. I've been aware of your band and like the previous releases. We've given great reviews on the site to your band, but I feel Peace of Mind is something that has you poised really for superstardom. If you had to name the biggest difference in your approach to this album compared to your previous ones, what do you think that would be?
I think we just kind of found like a way to efficiently be ourselves. Like, because every artist like pulls influence from either their peers or projects or artists that they enjoy or love. Obviously, like that's kind of just the vacuum of inspiration for a creative person. But with this record, I feel like we found a way to kind of make our influences our own in a way that it's not so much worn on our sleeves, so to speak. And we did that in a multitude of ways between the songwriting, the production, and for me personally, like finding my own voice and stuff like that. So that's probably what I would say did it for me.
You mentioned finding your own voice. Obviously, you've been a vocalist for quite a while. What does that really mean or entail?
Well, it was kind of a combination of uh, I think it was around the end of 20, or it was like early 2019 that we did a couple songs with Eric Ron, producer in our scene. We did the two songs on the deluxe reissue of our previous record, Never Knowing Limits, of those two songs. And he kind of helped me open up a bit and just be more comfortable in my own skin, or I guess my own voice, so to speak, and kind of brought me out of my shell. And once he kind of unlocked that for me psychologically, I kind of just went with it and just kept it rolling in my own, writing and studio recording environments at home. And, that kind of translated a lot into the creative process for this record. And I also record and co-write and produce music for other artists when I'm off tour, at least when I have the time. And I started to notice like habits in other singers and like younger bands or younger singers that I would start working with that I was able to acknowledge in myself as bad habits. So in a way, like between, having good, influences on me in the studio, like working with Eric Ron, and then also kind of stepping into a teaching role as an engineer and a producer with other singers, I was able to kind of reflect on myself and kind of see the mistakes I felt like I was making as a vocalist. So it's a big learning process there.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like it. And I'm really interested in you building that confidence. You seem more confident than ever with your vocals, but what was it like before? Where did you really get your start in singing?
Well, I think a big part of it was that I've not like historically been a singer since I started making music. I played guitar in a lot of bands growing up as a teenager. And, once I started what became Bad Omens, I think I was around 17. I had my own means to record. I had my own little recording, kit or package or whatever, Sweetwater. And it gave me like more freedom to explore like tracking my own vocals and seeing how I liked the sound of my voice, for a project instead of just writing music and then finding a vocalist. So I ended up falling into that role as the front man and the singer because I was just recording myself, writing the vocals, and I wanted to write the songs and the lyrics and the melodies and stuff myself. So I figured at that point it would be more authentic if I'm just the one performing it versus writing it for another singer, which I know some bands work like that. Like there are bands out there where the singer doesn't even really write his parts. He kind of just is told what to sing or record. Um, and then, yeah, so Bad Omens was technically like the first band I ever did vocals for, did shows as a vocalist or toured as a vocalist. So there was definitely a lot of margin for error as I was like learning how to become a vocalist in real time in a signed and touring band. And I feel like a lot of mistakes a lot of bands make is when they get pushed into that really quickly, they don't observe their mistakes or their flaws and they don't really grow. Whereas me, like I was just very hard on myself for like forever. I mean, I still am, but I'm definitely at a point now where I feel like I've figured out what I should be doing both on tour and in the studio with my voice. And I've like entered a new chapter with it, I guess.
Yeah, you can really tell through the progression of the band. And Bad Omens, especially now more than ever, walks that line of metal, pop, hip hop, R&B. What was your upbringing in music? I imagine you had some appreciation for the mainstream culture, right?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of had like every phase you could imagine as a teenager. Like I had my goth, like trip pants phase. I had my hip hop, like Eminem phase. I went through like a pop punk kind of era, and throughout that process, I kind of just learned that I really love all types of music. I wouldn't say I went through like a country phase, but there was a point in time where I realized I liked country music, and which was something I thought I would never say at the time as like an angsty, like metalhead teenager. But yeah, like I just getting more into the creation of music, you kind of realize how much it all ties in together. Because at the end of the day, there's like 12 notes and like, the Western, premise of music and whatnot. And there's only so much you can really do outside of like the production when it comes to the, basics, like the skeleton of writing a song. So I kind of found a way to like find something I appreciate in every style of music and try to implement it in what Bad Omens is doing now.
Do you feel metalheads today are more equipped or at least more approachable to the mainstream elements in music?
I think so. I think it's like it was pretty jarring for, at first when bands started introducing electronic elements or even like a more polished like vocal production in like the rock and metal music space. But it's become like so normalized that I think it's way less intense or abrasive for metalheads, and they're a lot more open to it. I mean, we've done some tours this year where I was like, man, we're gonna be so weird on this tour. No one's gonna like us, and we're gonna stand out and be weird. And every tour we've done this year, like people really like our live show and like our music and become fans of the band. So I think if what you're doing like with confidence and like it's true to who you are as a musician, people will resonate with that more than they will just grab, genre labels or something and stick to that. Like I think it's more about the authenticity than like, oh, I like this type of music, this type of metal or whatever.
That said, I don't think Bad Omens is the kind of band that goes into a studio with an agenda of something they want to make, like going into the studio and saying you're going to make a commercial record or anything like that. But were you listening to anything, more in particular that influenced what you came out with?
I kind of dive into everything that I really like and I'm inspired by. You can probably hear some of this on the Death of Peace of Mind, but got really into Billie Eilish like around the time before the pandemic started, and I know that her and her brother also write and produce their music like pretty much in their house the same way me and Jolly do with Bad Omens. So that was really inspiring to me to like dive because they sometimes they put content out on like YouTube of like them like making a song or something, and they even use like the same DAW that we use. So that was like inspiring to see an artist on such a high platform and status like Billie Eilish, like kind of making music in the same DIY kind of feeling environment that my band does, and just tossing like the rule book entirely out the window and realizing you don't need like a big fancy like award winning producer, like you don't need to go to like some $1 million studio, like you just need like the right tools in your mind, and the right creative people around you to make something match your vision.
Absolutely. But would you decline a big time producer if the opportunity was there?
Uh, I definitely don't think I would pay for it. like, like if someone like came to us and wanted to like co-write or try to co-write a Bad Omen song, I would be open to it. But there's definitely been conversations in the past where like people have tried to push us onto like producers or co-writers, and it's like to me, and maybe we haven't worked with other people enough to say this 100% like confidently, but when you're working with someone that's already like established and has all these like album sales or reputations or awards under their belt, they have a lot less to lose than we do as like a new young band. So it's like if their project or the album flops, it's really not a huge loss to them if they've done this platinum record or this gold record or whatever, because we're just kind of a small fish in their big pond. So it's kind of the same approach with anything, where it's not so much like if you want it done right, do it yourself, but like more so no one's going to care about your thing more than you. You know what I mean? Like no is going to put as much care or like effort or time or patience into something that you care about more than you will yourself. So if you have the means to acquire those skills like recording and engineering and writing music and stuff like me and Jolly have worked on for so long, I think it's something you should utilize. And that's not to say like write off, knowledge from people that are willing to help you out or share information with you, but I wouldn't put all your eggs in their basket. You know what I mean? Because that's a whole other person with their own life and their own projects going on. And, your band is not their 100% priority.
And there's something to be said that if you're putting all your eggs into the hands of a producer to create your music for you, there's probably something wrong.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Now, your lyrics in particular are so personal and heartbroken. Are they all first-person perspective and things that you've experienced, or, are you also a third-party storyteller type?
The line is blurred a lot for sure because I try to keep it vague and ambiguous enough that it's like it could really resonate with anyone with anything they're kind of going through, at least for the most part. And I think it's kind of corny sometimes to be like too specific or too on the nose to your own event or, a world event or whatever it is you're writing about. Like, I think, making whatever you're writing be like so obvious that that's the point is it kind of takes the fun out of it for me personally, and like kind of takes like the poetry out of it, I guess you could say. And I also don't like to put too much like I guess literal like personal experience into the lyrics because it's like I don't want people to pick apart my life or my personal life. Like I don't want to be a spectacle of the conversation of the music. I want the music to do that, you know? So, like I said, I try to keep it ambiguous and vague, but still like come from a place that is based on like real experience and like, real whatever wisdom I could say I've acquired in, the 26 years I've been here. I try to put that into it, of course, but just in an artistic way.
I think one thing that really helps me gravitate to your lyrics is feeling a lot of the emotions and unfortunate relationship experiences that you described. Do you get a lot of people talking to you about their failed relationships and hard times, maybe during shows and stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Even last night we played a venue. I forgot what the city was called, but it was in Iowa, and it was like a casino slash venue hotel thing. And after the show, like we all went and like hung out in the casino and stuff, and got food and everything. And there was a lot of people from the show that stayed and hung out like for the after hours type of stuff. And there's just a lot of people coming up to us and talking to us about the record and about the show, and just kind of opening up to strangers essentially. Like maybe we don't feel like strangers to them because like they're so connected to us through our music, but at the end of the day we're strangers, and they would come to us and say how much the music meant to them or this song or how much just even the concert experience meant to them and meant to their like day-to-day life. So yeah, it's definitely overwhelming when people put so much of their own, I guess, emotion into something I've created and like connect with it. And that's kind of it's a cool thing for sure. It's kind of heavy, because everyone's going through something, and finding out how much you mean to someone you don't even know is it's like a lot of responsibility, I guess, as like an artist.
Do you find it hard to tap into those emotions when you start writing, or is it something in yourself or life that allows you to get there?
No, I don't think it's hard because it's like I think that's where keeping it authentic is important, because kind of like I said about the whole like genre label thing, it's like people see authenticity way more than they see like the front that a creator or an artist puts up. So I feel like as long as we're making music in a way that feels true to ourselves, and I'm writing lyrics that feel like they're coming from a genuine passionate place, that like in one way or another will resonate with whoever's listening or reading along or watching the videos or whatever, because it's real. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you tell like that real recognizes real. You know what I mean?
Not only are your words eloquent, they're also incredibly memorable, and that's one of those things I find so hard to do, especially in metal. it's actually more akin to pop or R&B than metal. What is your approach to writing something that you think fans will sing along to?
Well, I agree entirely with what you just said. I mean, I think, and that's kind of where the whole like gatekeeping of like metal elitist like culture or whatever like really bugs me, is because with more mainstream music like pop or hip hop or whatever's like alternative emo that's mainstream right now, I'm not really sure what to even call it. Like, there's definitely a conscious regard in the writing process for like the hook. And as someone that wants to retain artistic integrity and like be a unique creative person, that's the hardest part in the studio to me, is like making something that I can like try to separate from myself and objectively feel like will have that like catchy, grabby, like hook commercial value, while still feeling like original and like it hasn't been done, if not before, at least as much as stuff that I hear in the scene, so to speak. So, when I approach writing a song, I typically start with the production and the vocals these days, which in like rock and metal, I've kind of found in other writing and studio environments with other artists that that's kind of last. Like, they like to write the instrumentals first, like guitar riff and drums and all that stuff, and then they'll add like cool sound effects, and then maybe vocals last. But with me, the hook and the vocals conveys so much of what the song is trying to say. At least in our style of music, like there's bands that focus on the guitar work, like Polyphia, like entirely, and that's really where you get the emotion in the song, is in the instrument. But with us, like, the instruments kind of just supply the bedding, so to speak, of the production and the vocals, which to me is like the most exciting thing when I'm making music. It's like cool sound effects and synths and catchy hooks and a really witty lyric that conveys something while also being memorable. Like, there's kind of like a science to it. Like, I compare it to cooking a lot, almost. Like, you could remove this one ingredient and it would still be a great meal, but you could also put too much of this ingredient in and ruin it. So it's like it's a really delicate balance of finding this, like, what I consider, or what I call a lot in the studio, like tasteful balance to like the writing process, where you're not overdoing something, but you're also not like being lazy and underdoing it either.
I can hear that. It sounds like you start with the vocals, and you're absolutely right that it's an afterthought for most metal bands. I know you have lyrics for days as you write for yourself and other artists out there, but does a Bad Omen song start with vocal melodies that you have pre-written?
Yeah, if it starts with a melody, it usually like, at least for the Death of Peace of Mind, a lot of songs would start with me making. It sounds like such like cheesy studio talk, but I'll just like make like a vibe, I call it, where it's like 8 bars of like a loop or a chord progression with like some ambience and like little sprinkles, whether it's like little synth plucks or whatever, just to like create a feeling. And then I'll maybe bust out like the microphone, like my desk microphone, and just start humming like the first melody that comes to my head. And sometimes like words will just kind of find the melody based on like the consonants or the vowels that the melody calls for in my head. Or sometimes I'll like have words on standby, and then I'll try to make a melody around those words. People like ask me a lot when I like, in the past, when I've done like songwriting clinics, like, do you write lyrics first or do you write melodies first? And I do both sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, if I have a really strong set of lyrics I've written prior to starting the song, I'll try to make them work. And if they don't fit, that's where a lot of artists I see make a mistake, because they want so hard for their idea or their concept or their lyrics to fit in a place where it doesn't belong. And then the vocal melody section, verse, whatever it is, feels like they've tried to slip too many syllables in there, or they tried to like fit a word in there that doesn't really fit the rhyme scheme as well. And you can tell that it's forced. And that's where, like, me as a songwriter, I try to take a step back and say, okay, this isn't going to work here. Maybe I can use it somewhere else. I hope I can, because I love these lyrics, but I'm not going to let like my pride get in the way of what could be a good song by trying to force something that I want to be in there that won't work.
When and where do you feel most inspired as a songwriter?
I think in like a work environment, definitely just when I'm at home in my studio and like I have my speakers cranked loud and I'm just like digging through samples. Like, I usually get very excited when I find a cool sample I like, even if it's like a simple like drum groove or cool like synth like siren one shot. There's like this one sound in the Death of Peace of Mind we used a lot, which is like it's like a brief like siren noise. It happens in Concrete Jungle and Death of Peace of Mind, somebody else, I think a couple other songs. And I'll just hear something and be like, this is so cool. Like I want to build something around this. And then once I have something built around that, I'm like, okay, what are the vocals going to do here? Because once the vocals start going, that's when like the story starts getting told for me, I guess, like, and the song becomes more linear. And I'm like, okay, I wrote this vocal hook. Is this a verse? Is this a chorus? Like, could this be a chorus if I brought it up an octave and I kind of sang it more powerfully? That's how Like a Villain came to be. Like, the chorus of Like a Villain was just like a chill, stripped down verse when we first started it. And then that became the chorus of the song because we liked the lyrics and the melody so much. And we thought this should be a chorus. It's way too catchy to just be the first verse in a song. So yeah, I mean, I bounce all over the place when I'm like in my creative zone. I also listen to a lot of rap when I'm like trying to get into a more like lyrical space, I guess. Like I find myself a lot just going on walks and listening to Drake, and like something about like his rhythms or his flows will like it's almost like I'll start having a conversation with him and I'll think of like my own words that kind of like bounce back with the similar rhythm. I actually have a playlist on my Spotify called Conversations with Drake for this reason, and they're just like songs that I listen to that like get my like gears turning as far as lyrics go. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just an example of how many ways there are to find inspiration when you're writing music. You know, it doesn't always have to be like just with a guitar at your interface or at your computer, you know.
I'm sitting over here like, damn, is Noah going to be the reason I give Drake a shot?
I mean, that's something with hip hop and rock that I feel like, and I haven't mastered this, but like, I I think there's so much more room to tell a more detailed, visceral story in that genre, like the new Kendrick Lamar record, for example, which I'm a big fan of. It took me a minute to like latch onto it, but it's like that type of instrumental environment calls for so much more like lyrical freedom, I guess. Whereas like with rock and even like pop and commercial music, you kind of feel like there's a somewhat of a guideline to stick to when it comes to like I have a verse melody. I can't deviate too much from this in the second verse. Like it's gonna be too left field, and then you kind of get stuck in your ways about like how the whole song should be based on one part. So when I was making this record, I tried to throw that you know like predisposition, I guess, like out of the window. So like every song felt like it was just like from start to finish, this is a cool song. Maybe a part doesn't repeat. Maybe like this part repeats too many times. Like it just needs to feel like enjoyable from front to back. So that's how I tried to approach all the songs on this record.
You've already gave a few throughout this interview, but as one of the best vocalists, I think, in metal today, what advice would you give to others when it comes to their own music?
Um, I would say like I know this is honestly the hardest part. Like it's almost like going to the gym. It's like getting up and doing it is way harder than like just being there and doing it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like making the conscious decision to get up and do something versus I don't feel like doing it today or this is too hard. I feel like that same approach could be applied to music when you go to sit down and you go to be creative and then like you realize, oh, I'm just ripping this off over and over, or I'm just doing the same thing I did yesterday where I'm playing the same type of riff, and you get trapped in like one idea. And I think people should just be like more willing to adventure when it comes to like making music. And like I've had these frustrations in the studio in the past where I have an artist in and I'm like trying to pull that out of them, and I can tell they're kind of just stuck in their old ways where they only want to like write a certain way, and then it just kind of sounds like everything they've been doing. And I'm like, let's try something else. Like let's start a song like this, or let's get like a chorus looping. Let's you just go like freestyle like oohs and ahs even over the chorus, and then just see like what comes out instead of like, because a lot of it to me, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, is like confidence. Like there's a comfortability and a confidence to like making music, and when you get like when you become embarrassed or like shy or like afraid to try things or to sound stupid or look stupid, that's when you're immediately holding yourself back. No different than like if you're trying to do a skateboard trick and then you hesitate at the last minute, you're going to hurt yourself or at the very least not land the trick, you know? So like, I think you need to take that same just like 100% mindset into the studio where you're like, I want to try this. If it sounds stupid or looks stupid, who cares? You know, like, cause that was my whole approach making this record. And we made part of it in my house. So like my roommates would be downstairs, I don't know, like watching TV, and I'd be like upstairs in my room, like you could hear me screaming through the hallways, you know, and like a few years ago that would have been awkward or embarrassing for me. I'd be like, oh, I gotta wait till my roommates are gone to like do this. But now I'm like, this is what I do. Like this is kind of my job. It's goofy and stupid, like to hear it out of context, you know, from another room. But this is what I do. So like you gotta just let all that go and just like have fun with it again. Like you gotta return to a kid-like approach, to a childlike approach to the music. And to me, like that's when making this record became really fun. And now that I'm like seeing things this way, I'm very excited to make more music because I feel like we've kind of just now opened up like a new channel, so to speak, of what Bad Omens is capable of.
Well, I think Bad Omens is already on fire, but we can't wait to see where it goes next. And that advice that you gave is not only great for music, but really life itself.
Yeah.
Noah, thank you so much for talking with me. The Death of Peace of Mind is out now. The band will be supporting it. Go check it out.
Yeah, great to meet you, man. Thank you so much.